So today we have a 24-7 win over the Los Angeles Rams. So where does that put our team? Well, 8-2. It's pretty good. So this things get interesting, but let's go into the statistical things how this went down. So Goff, he was 23 of 37, 225 yards, a 6.1 average yards per attempt. No touch, no pick. He was sacked 2 times, 16 yards on them sacks, and a QBR of 52 flat, and a quarterback rating of 79.2. So when you factor in that the sack numbers, they only allowed 209 passing yards, did our Minnesota Vikings. So, okay, rushing. This is where I really am impressed with this team. Okay, so total they had only 17 carries for 45 yards for 2.6 yards per carry and that one touchdown by Gurley. Gurley himself had 15 carries for 37 yards with a 2.5 average. His longest run of the day was only 8 yards. If you put that in perspective, Goff had a 9-yard run. So, pretty good defensive day. And Robert Woods had 8 receptions, 81 yards, a 10.1 per catch average. He was targeted 11 times, and his longest was 23. Cooper Kupp, 6 catches on 7 targets, 64 yards, 10.7. He also had that fumble. We'll touch base on that later. And Sammy Watkins, 3 for 36, 12 average, and a long of 15 on 4 targets. Gurley had 3 catches for 19 yards on his 4 targets. Michael Thomas had 1 target, 1 catch for 12 yards. Gerald Everett, 1 catch off of 2 targets, 8 yards. Tyler Higbee had 1 catch off of 5 targets for 5 yards. And then Pharoah Cooper and Josh Reynolds also got targets, never caught a ball. So, yeah, team stat wise, they had 254 total yards. They lost the time of possession with 22 minutes and 38 seconds. They were 3 of 11 on third down, putting them at a measly 27.2%. 209 passing yards with only 45 rushing yards. And they got 15 first downs, 4.5 yards of play. They lost the turnover battle. And in the red zone, 1 for 3, putting them at 33%. Now, compare some of these stats to what they were averaging. They were, before this game and this week, third in total offense at 388.9. They got 254 total yards. 6th in passing offense, 260.1. They got 209. Rushing, they were 5th, 128.8. They got 45. So, and then going into our guys, we have Keenum, 27 of 38, 280 yards, a 7.4 average yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, did not take a sack. He had a QBR of 76.5 and a rating of 100.8. So, and then carrying the ball, Latavius Murray, good job, buddy. Broke out this game, I thought this was by far his best game just because he was consistently getting yards. I know a lot of people say, well, he had over 100 against the Ravens, but well, it's not the same because that was mainly 2 or 3 runs. This was consistent all day. So 15 carries, 95 yards, 6.3 average, 2 touchdowns, and a 34 was his long. McKinnon, 14 rushes, 48 yards, 3.4 yards was his average. Keenum had 3 carries for 20 at 6.7 yards per average. Ham had 3 carries and that 4th down conversion. He had 8 yards total. So in total, Minnesota, 35 carries, 171 yards, 4.9 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns from Latavius Murray. Receiving, Thielen, you are a bad man, and people need to start respecting you nationally because honestly, this is getting to a point where you're no longer a cute story. You are what is called a great receiver. So, Thielen, 6 receptions, 123 yards, 20.5 average per catch. He had the 165-yard touchdown. He had 9 targets. So, yeah, he's getting good, guys. Rudolph, 5 catches for 58 yards, 11.6 average, and 7 targets. Diggs had 6 targets for 4 catches and only 32 yards. I believe that's because of how the Los Angeles defense kind of played us. They kind of were afraid of the big play, so they gave us a lot of underneath stuff. And Jarius Wright had one catch for 23 yards on his one lone target, which I think that number needs to start going up. I think we need to start using him more. But Michael Floyd had two catches on his two targets, had 16 yards. 8 was his longest, so he evened out at 8 yards a catch. McKinnon, 5 catches on 7 targets, only 12 yards, although he did have one catch that was not good. It was not good. I think it was like -5, it felt like. So that didn't help that. But Treadwell had 3 targets, 2 catches, 10 yards. David Morgan had one catch for 5 yards on what I consider that is the longest play you will ever see go for 5 yards. Like, that took so much time. And Murray had one catch on his 2 targets and only got 1 yard out of it. But overall, the receivers and the pass catchers in general, 10.4 yards a catch. So, in Minnesota's team stats, we got 451 total yards. We won the possession time, 37 minutes and 22 seconds, to their 22:38. We got a turnover. We won the turnover battle. We were only +1, but we won the turnover battle. 6.2 yards of play compared to their 4.5 yards of play. Our third down conversion, 7 of 14, 50%. And then you have theirs at, what was it, 3 to 11? Yeah, it was 3 to 11, 27.2. It's not good. And then they had 15 first downs. We had 27. So this is, and then if you want to get into the red zone, once again, they were 1 of 3. We were 2 of 2. So I think that's really when you start going like, oh, that could be a difference. But yeah, going into this a little bit more in depth rather than just numbers. The defense, oh my lord, they played their minds out today. Specifically, there are some people out there that 2 of them that I feel we don't really give enough credit to. Well, we never really see them. But Terrence Newman and Anthony Harris, they played ball today. So Anthony Harris, usually just a special teams guy. I kind of just deemed him as, okay, cool. I'm not personally, Dejo, not my favorite guy. And I view kind of Jaron Kearse and Anthony Harris more as just special teamers. So to have Anthony Harris play a game like he did today is kind of refreshing to see. Maybe we do have some safety depth with Anthony Harris back there. And then Newman was playing like he was 25 again. I don't know what happened there, but we need to see this Newman more often. He was blowing up screens. He was everywhere, breaking up passes. The only real issue I had with him throughout the entire game was that one play on a third down. I think it was in the third quarter. He kind of threw the ball a little bit high for Tyler Higbee, and he kind of dropped it, but Newman didn't even try to jump for the ball. And I was like, hey, come on, contest that a bit. But outside of that, I thought he played a great game. And then defensively, the other thing, I said we were going to talk about that fumble. That's where Anthony Harris comes in. That's what he did. I think in that moment when he forced the fumble and recovered it at that 1 yard line is kind of when everything just snapped. Like, I think that's when it all just started coming into our favor. I think that's when you kind of knew, like, okay, our defense got this. So, and then defensively, we really forced the Rams to play our brand of football. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, the Rams could not deal with our defense that just comes out. We just hit and hit and hit you and hit you. And then when you think we're done hitting you, we're going to hit you again. So that's just kind of how this defense is. We're going to bully people to play our brand of football, which is you got to play good defense. You got to be mistake free and you got to run the ball on us. Otherwise, you got a rough day, especially if you're in U.S. Bank Stadium. So Keenum, buddy, he was really good today. Because honestly, the O-line I didn't think was that great in pass protection today. Especially that one play where I don't know how it worked. I really didn't. He dodged like 3 or 4 sacks in one play just by standing still, essentially. And he threw the ball, and I was like, that looks like a pick. And then somehow, in some way, it just landed in Adam Thielen's arms. So, and I think that was kind of like, I think this was his good, like, good. Well, obviously he was good, but I mean, I think this was his best game as a Minnesota Viking, even though statistically it will not say so. I think he avoided many, many sacks. I think this was the first time I saw Case Keenum and thought that can start. So I think we're reaching a weird quarterback thing between him and Teddy Bridgewater, but we'll probably make a video about that later. Right now, we're focusing on this. But yeah, and I was right for the most part of how if we were going to win this game, how we would win this game. I just thought they would score more than 7 points. I said we'd score 24 though. I just thought they would score 17. But how I said was we kind of needed to win possession time, and we needed to win with running Murray up the middle strictly because he is more of a grinder than McKinnon is. So if we can just consistently get yards with Murray on a defense that allowed 118 yards going into the day, and they got 170 plus put on them today with us. So so we needed to win possession time. We needed to stop Gurley, which 37 yards on 15 carries. I deem that as stopping Gurley, especially if you only had 19 yards through the air. So it doesn't really do much for him. Have a little bit over what is that, about 60. So it's a good day. It's a good day because we know what our defense is capable of, especially when we're in U.S. Bank Stadium. Whew. But yeah, we needed to win that and the turnover battle because they were actually 0-2 whenever they lost the turnover battle, and now make that 0-3. So it's interesting to say how I'm not trying to boast here, but I do think I called that pretty well. These things needed to happen for them to win. And then, but back to the O-line, I think the pass protection was pretty poor for most of the game, but I think that was pretty much expected if you're talking about Aaron Donald, Robert Quinn, and Michael Brockers all on this front line. It was a tough test. He didn't get sacked. I know everyone would be like, well, if they weren't that good in pass protection, why did he get sacked? And I think that's because Keenum was magnificent today. So he was becoming Houdini out there and almost felt like at times. So it's nice to see this happen. And then Kai. You can't be 0 for 2. You cannot be 0 for 2 early in the game. That game should have been 10-7 at half, and then towards the end, well, kind of like in that third quarter, should have been 13-7. We ended up being tied 7-7. Luckily, it ended up not really mattering because we ended up winning the game. But still, in a playoff game, you have to make those kicks. Those are very important. It got to a point where if we scored the touchdown, I was like, the extra point is concerning because that's the one you typically have issues with. So, yeah, we just need Kai to kind of shore up the kicks, and I think we're good. But we should finally be getting some respect around the national media because a lot of people loved the Rams. I know people loved the Rams. Like, it almost felt like, is it going to be the Rams or the Saints in the championship game with the Eagles? That's kind of what it felt like. And I think, even though I know a lot of people, well, we beat the Saints. We beat a totally different Saints team. I think that the Saints are probably something to be reckoned with. So I think if we get them in U.S. Bank Stadium, we have a better chance, obviously, because going to the Superdome is a totally different beast. But that's neither here nor there, and it may not be anywhere. So, but yeah. So I think this will actually kind of put them on the map. Like, are they true contenders to Philadelphia? Because I know Philadelphia is gonna be the bar. Philadelphia is 8-1 now, and I'm imagining they're gonna win tonight just because there's no Sean Lee in that game. So, well, and no Tyron Smith. But that's not the point. That's gonna be the bar, and it's gonna be between. Now the conversation might be, is it going to be us or the Saints in that championship game with the Eagles? Which, this is going to be nice, getting some national recognition, especially if we can handle our stuff on Detroit. Which, speaking of that, time to go to the Turkey Bowl. Again, this year, hopefully we can actually pull it out this time. I would imagine we could, but that will be a different video. And till then,